which looked incredible, but I want to make this accessible. If someone thinks, I've got mums who have to take kids to school who are rushing around, and I give them a framework on how to do a morning routine. So my framework is this. I say, look, a morning routine can be anything, different things to different people, but I think a useful way to look at it is to think about the 3 M's. The first M is mindfulness, the second M is movement, and the third M is mindset. And it's just a simple framework. So for me, for example, at the moment, I will wake up. I used to use my phone to go on the Calm meditation app. I'm actually not doing the meditation. I'm doing some deep breathing, so a sort of breathing form of meditation. So I actually don't need my phone at the moment. But if you need a meditation app, that's cool. I just say, put your phone on airplane mode so you're not seeing everything that's coming in. But I'll do 10 minutes of deep breathing. Then I'll do like 5-10 minutes of movement, let's say some hip stretches or something. And then I'll do mindset. And mindset can either be reading something positive. So I'll have a few books there that I'm enjoying reading and things that make me feel good. And I'll read a few pages. Or I'll do something called affirmations. Now, look, I've got young kids, so I try and get up before my kids so that I can do my routine. But my daughter has a sixth sense of when daddy's up. And often she'll creep down. And often she'll be there when I'm doing my movement, so she'll just join me. And then if she's with me, because I also want to do the mindset piece, we do affirmations together.
That's
so
nice. Yeah.
We'll sit together, hold hands, and for 2 minutes we'll say, I'm happy, I'm calm, I'm stress-free. I'm happy, I'm calm, I'm stress-free. We'll say that for 2 minutes. At the end of those 2 minutes, she's got a big smile on her face. I feel incredible. And what's more important is that feeling lasts and buffers me for the entire day. Those days when I think, you don't have time today, you got to get going, I start to react to things. I'm not as focused, I'm not as present. To really break it down for someone listening to this who thinks, I get it, but I don't have time. I've got one patient in particular who does 5 minutes and she uses my 3 M's. The first piece, for 1 minute, she does deep breathing. She does a breath that I taught her called the 3-4-5 breath. When you breathe in for 3, you hold for 4, and you breathe out for 5. She does that for 1 minute. Then she does 2 minutes of movement. Coming back to what you said before, she had been to like 1 yoga class in her life, but she learned a couple of moves that she likes. So she does her favorite moves for 2 minutes, right? This is what we're talking about, the immersive experience to learn it, right? So 1 minute of deep breathing, 2 minutes of yoga, and then she does 2 minutes of reading. She's got a list of books there, a pile of books, and she picks one, and for 2 minutes she reads. She has told me this has transformed her life. She doesn't scream at her kids as much. She's much more present in the day. And for her eczema has got significantly better.
Wow.
This is why I'm so passionate about this stuff, right? Eczema is a skin condition, but fundamentally it is a slight dysfunction of one part of the immune system. When you're stressed, it impacts the immune system, right? So for her, doing this morning routine has significantly improved a skin condition.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm so passionate about this. This sounds like small things. You give it a big priority, as you say, and it really leads to a lot of improvements.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so stretchable because you can do it in 5 minutes, you can do it in 10, you could give yourself 15, and you could grow it, but it could be as simple. And I love the 3 things together. I think
Can I ask you, Jay, actually? I'm super intrigued because in your 2-hour morning routine, I do
all 3 of those things.
I was going to say,
because
so what do you do?
Yeah, so I wake up and my biggest practice is my meditation practice, which includes everything from breath work through to visualization, through to mantra and affirmations. So my meditation—
You cover the whole lot.
Yeah, I do all 3 types of meditations: breathing, visualization, and mantra or affirmation. And so I do all 3 of those. And then I go to the gym. So I do about gym for about 45 minutes every day, about 4 days a week. So for me, it's like, that's my morning routine, and mindset is a huge part of it. And I try and find, my mindset isn't necessarily in the morning because my days are so flexible, but I would get at least 30 minutes of reading in a day around something I love. And this isn't just something I started doing now. And this is the point I keep reminding to everyone. And yes, I don't have kids. So I've always put that out there and said, look, I don't have kids. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be the same when I have kids. So I'm just putting it out there. But the other thing I've said is that when I've been working at a company, I didn't just do this when I became an entrepreneur. I've done this for years, and I've avoided watching 2 extra episodes in the evening so that I can get that time back in the morning. And I think that's the difference, that I sleep much earlier. So when I wake up early and get 2 hours at the start of the day, that's because I want to sleep at 9:30 p.m.
Hey man, snap. I tell you what's changed for me when I had kids is it's shifting my bedtime earlier, because I've realized for me, and this point's super important for people, you got to figure out what works for you.
Yes.
Right? For me, I'm a much better person. I'm a better father. I'm a much better dad. I'm a better husband when I have time to myself in the morning.
Yes.
If I get up at the same time as everyone else and I'm sort of reacting,
Me too.
it doesn't work so well for me.
Same.
So I've shifted my bedtime earlier so that I can get up earlier before them.
Yeah.
And, if you do have kids, I've shared that my daughter sometimes comes down. You know what? I kind of also feel that, hey, I'm helping her to see Daddy prioritizes his self-care. I hope I'm showing her.
Well, you're doing it with her. That's amazing.
That this stuff is important. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, because ultimately I could get frustrated. And if I'm honest, I used to get frustrated.
That she was around then.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh man, I really wanted this time to myself. And that sort of tension is stressing me out, which is counterproductive. And now I've learned, hey, look, I'm doing a lot of personal growth anyway, but I've learned to kind of accept things and actually really accept what's going on and being like, okay, my daughter said, cool. So what's the message I can learn? Cool, get her involved.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. And I hope this leads to her putting these practices in of her own volition when she's older. You know, I'll tell you in a few years if she does it.
No, I'm sure she will. And I love that. And let's talk about that sleep piece, because I think for so many of us, when you've had a long day at work, you had a stressful day at work, you come home, you've put the kids to bed, and you just think, I need to decompress. I'm going to put the TV on. And it may be 10 p.m. by then or whatever it is. And you get lost, like you said, till midnight or 1 a.m., whatever it is. And then you wake up. Is there any decompression in watching a show? Or actually, in my opinion, the sleep and the decompression through sleep is so much more powerful than the entertainment value. You think you feel better by watching 2 episodes of your favorite show.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think we're looking at symptoms here. The symptom of being so stressed all the time is that we need to find ways of relieving that stress, whether that's sugar, whether it's alcohol, whether it's binge watching Netflix. Yeah. We're trying to hide and numb like something else that's going on in our life. And that's okay if you're conscious of it. But sleep, I hate prioritizing those 4 pillars of health because it's against what I stand for. But if you push me, I might argue that sleep might be the most important, because when you sleep well, it's easier to do all those other things. It's easier not to be reactive. It's easier to eat well. It's easier to be more, all these things are easier when you sleep well. The biggest problem in society regarding sleep is simply this. We're not prioritizing it, right? We think it's optional. We do other things. And when we're done, when we've exhausted all other possibilities, I better get some sleep in. Yeah. But once you start prioritizing sleep and making that the foundation of your day and think, I need to get up at this time, therefore what time do I need to go to sleep? You will find very quickly your life changes. Now, one thing I'd love to share is that I've been seeing patients for almost 20 years now. And in almost every case, a sleep issue is usually a lifestyle issue. There are very, very few cases relatively that are what we call a primary sleep disorder, which needs a treatment. Most things, we are doing something in our lifestyle that we do not realize is impacting our ability to sleep at night. Caffeine is a big one. We all know caffeine can be problematic for sleep. People don't realize that if you go to Starbucks at midday and buy a large latte, at 6 p.m., half of that Starbucks latte is going around your blood and your brain. Wow. At midnight, a quarter is going around your brain, right? So I say to people, enjoy your caffeine if you want it. Enjoy it before noon if you can. If someone thinks caffeine does not affect them and they're struggling with their sleep, I challenge them for 7 days to just have it in the morning and just see what happens. If it doesn't make a difference, fine. But if it does, now you're empowered with information and you can choose what you want to do with that. My job is not to tell somebody what to do. I feel my job is to empower them so they start to experience it for themselves, so they then can be in charge. They can be sovereign and decide, I'm going to do this. Yeah. So that's a big one. What you do before bed is super important, right? And you got to wind down. For any of your listeners who do have kids, they will recognize that you need to give your kids a little routine. What do you do before bed with your kids? You don't give them a load of sugar to amp them up. You don't put on the TV really loud and actually get them really emotionally charged. You don't put the lights really bright. You lower your tone. You soften the lights. You might put some music on. You might read them a story. We as adults think somehow we're different from kids, but we are not, right? I have a rule, like 1 hour before bed, I try 90 minutes, but really it's normally 1 hour before bed. I make a mental switch in my head and I go off from my daytime to my nighttime. I am now in preparation for sleep. I'm switching off. My laptop goes off. Mostly. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I do it right and it always affects my sleep.
Yeah.
But I do, I'll listen to music. I'll read in bed. Like my wife and I have a little rule that we try and sort of help motivate each other to do, which is to charge our phones in our kitchen. If I bring my phone into my bedroom, I cannot resist looking at it.
Of course not.
I just can't resist.
Yeah, no one can.
So I live in a house, so downstairs is where my phone charges. And then when I just switch off and read, I actually fall into a really deep slumber. Now, I just want to share a little very quick story for people who think that technology does not affect their sleep quality. One of my buddies, actually, who lives out here in California, and I actually met him a couple of days ago, but a couple of years ago, he said to me, Rangan, look, I get all this stuff about technology and blue light before bed. I feel sorry for those people who it affects. I'm totally cool with it. I said, okay, cool. Anyway, then he bought like an Aura ring, like one of these fancy tracking rings. I'm not saying everyone has to buy that, but he bought an Aura ring. I think they are very good. And he phoned me up about a year ago. He's like, Rangan, oh my God, I've just had a look. Every time I do work emails, I'll go on a social media just before I go to bed. The amount of deep sleep I get has almost vanished.
Wow.
Right? So ironically, he needed tracking technology to tell him, and that changed his behavior. So you may fall asleep, but it's not just the quantity of sleep, it's the quality of sleep.
Yeah.
Try for 7 days. Again, I challenge people to try. See if you can switch your phone off for 1 hour before bed and see what happens. I almost guarantee that you will feel different in the morning.
Yeah, I agree.
You will feel calmer. And also, there's this phase just before sleep that I've been learning about from reading some neuroscience, is that the phase in your brain, I think it's called a hyperphagic state of consciousness. Don't quote me on that if that's incorrect. But that what you do just before bed is critical. Your brain processes it
100%.
when you sleep. So if you've got in a battle over Donald Trump online, right, or into a row with your friend on Facebook just before you go to bed, guess what your brain's going to be thinking about at night?
100%.
Right? You got to protect that. If you feel that you are the most important person in your life, and I hope people who follow your work are starting to get to that point where actually they put themselves first, the best thing you can do is prioritize your sleep.
Yeah.
And that starts 1 hour before it. Take ownership of that time. You do that for a few days, you will feel the difference. You will feel bulletproof in the rest of your life.
Yeah, this is great advice, by the way. I think this is awesome. I'm so glad we're going deep on some of these things because, and it's nice to hear you say a lot of the stuff that I so deeply believe in and explain it so incredibly well. One of the things I love about what you're saying is you bring in lifestyle, you talk about loneliness and friendship. You also talk a lot about purpose, and it's
for sure
feeling around lowering stress and the role that purpose plays. And often purpose isn't really used in a health context, but you really bring it in. And I love that. I mean, the podcast is called On Purpose, but
hey, absolutely.
But I feel so much that purpose is so closely linked to health. And tell us from your perspective and your findings.
Yeah, this is, Jay, why I started the book with purpose as the first quarter of the book, because I thought fundamentally a life which has no meaning and purpose is inherently a stressful life. Right? Yes, you can do all the other things, but ultimately, if you don't have that reason to get up and you don't have that direction in your life, I think things can be very, very challenging. Now, the science backs that up. People with and I'm sure you probably going to cover this in your book, I would imagine, but people who don't have a strong sense of purpose have poor health outcomes. They have lower levels of income. They have lower levels of happiness. All these things come from something that we might often have thought is a little bit soft, right? This is the stuff. And this is why, I'm super proud of my first book, but my second book, I think, really tackles the issues in health that we're not talking about enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think meaning and purpose is so important. Now, why is purpose so important? We sort of explained that, but I remember a few years ago on Facebook, I saw one of my friends post this idea of ikigai, which I'm sure you're familiar with, this Japanese idea of ikigai, and there were these 4 circles. And they said, ikigai is where these things meet in the middle. And those 4 circles were try and find something you do in your life that you love, that you're good at, that the world needs, and that pays you money. And I remember looking at that. And it was just a couple of years after my dad had died. So I was going through a huge sort of, I cared for my dad for like 15 years with my mom and my brother. And dad dying was one of the biggest shifts for me. And I that's really set me on this path to kind of personal growth and trying to figure out who I am and what I'm doing. And I looked at that and I thought, Ikigai, I want Ikigai in my life. I fancy a bit of Ikigai. And I would talk about this concept with my patients. And a lot of my patients would say, yeah, I like that, but it's just too intimidating. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And when I was doing the UK book tour for the book in January, I was in London. I was taking a Q&A at the end, and this Japanese student put a hand up. And she said, Dr. Chatterjee, I just want to share that I've grown up with this concept.
Oh, wow.
And I have found it so, I've actually found it really hard. I found it an impossible bar to live up to. And I found that so interesting because I love the concept, but then I'm always thinking about, well, what if my patients or what if my friends are finding it too difficult? So I simplified it. I tried to create I did create a new framework that I call the Live framework in my book to help people ultimately get more meaning and purpose in their life. Now, I love Ikigai, right? I'm not criticizing it.
I get it.
If you're like, when I worked in Oldham, like for 7 years, which is, the practice I worked in was a lot of poor patients. A lot of them were on benefits. They didn't really have the thought of actually finding one thing that ticked all those boxes was just like pie in the sky, right? So the Live framework I really enjoy, and we don't need to go through it all necessarily, but it's LIVE, L for love, I for intention, V for vision, and E for engagement. Now, if we just take the first one, because I think this is really practical take home for people. The first one is love. The research shows us super clearly, regularly doing things that you love makes you more resilient to stress. But conversely, being stressed day in, day out makes it harder for you to experience pleasure in day-to-day things. It kind of works both ways. And so I always talk to my patients about passion. What are you doing in your life that you really love? Again, I mean, another patient example, which I think brings it to life, 51-year-old chap. Maybe, I don't know how old your listeners are, right? I don't know if that's a bit older or not, but I think there's a very powerful story here. 51-year-old chap comes in to see me. He's the CFO of a local plastics company. Good job, good money. He's married, he's got kids, he lives in a pretty big house. He comes in to see me, again, worried about depression. He said, Doc, I struggle to get out of bed sometimes. I'm indifferent about things. I just lost that get up and go. I feel quite down sometimes. I said, okay, fine. I try to tease out what's going on. I said, how's your relationship with your wife? Yeah, it's so. We don't see each other that much. It's fine. Very, very indifferent. I said, how's your job? My job, it just pays the bills. I don't really enjoy it, but I need it. It pays the mortgage, helps put food on the table. I said, okay, have you got any hobbies? Doc, I don't have time for hobbies. I'm a busy guy. I don't have time. I said, what about the weekends? Weekends, I've got to do the housework, got to do all the chores, take the kids around to their sports clubs. I said, okay, did you ever have any hobbies? Yeah, well, as a kid, as a teenager, I used to love playing with toy train sets. I said, okay, do you have a train set, right? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I've got one in the attic, but it's really dusty. I haven't seen it in years. I said, okay, what I'd love you to do tonight when you get home is get your train set out. Now, look, I appreciate this may not be the advice he was expecting from his doctor,
I love it.
But this was the advice I gave him. Then I didn't see him for a little while, which is not uncommon. We have so many patients, we can't follow them all up. 3 months later, I was in my clinic car park about to do some home visits, and I bumped into his wife. And I said, hey, how's your husband doing? She said, Dr. Chatterjee, I feel like I've got the guy I married back again. He comes home from work, he's pottering around on his train set, he's on eBay trying to buy collector's trains, and he subscribed to this monthly magazine now. He's just like a different person.
Yeah.
I still hadn't seen him. 3 months later, I see him. He'd done some blood tests. He came in for a check with me. And before we went into that, I said, hey, how are you getting on? So, Doc, I feel like a different person. I feel happy. I feel energized. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much. I said, how's your relationship with your wife? He's like, we've never been closer. Things are super, super good. I said, what about your job? I really, really enjoy my job now. So what does that tell you? You ask the question again, did this chap have a mental health problem? Sure. He had symptoms. I could have diagnosed him with something. Or was what he really had a deficiency of passion in his life? When he corrects his passion deficiency, everything else comes back online. Yeah, he feels better in himself. Now he's enjoying his job. Now he's closer with his wife. Now he's got more energy. And it started with him playing with his train set. So for people listening to that, I would love them. And actually, to make it super easy, I challenge all of my patients to say, look, Can you give yourself a daily dose of pleasure, even if it's just for 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes. It could be a walk. It could be listening to a podcast, reading a book. It could be watching one of your videos, one of your feel-good videos, like go onto your account and watch one of them to make you feel good. Doesn't matter. Whatever you enjoy doing, give yourself, I want to give a daily dose of pleasure. I want people to give that the same priority as they might give the amount of vegetables they have on their plates.
Yeah.
When we talk about health, we're not talking about pleasure. We're not talking about passion. It is so important. And, again, another question I'd ask people is, think about in your own life, when did you last do something that you love, that you did for you, not so you could post about it on social media, right? And again, I'm not criticizing if you want to do that, but understand the things that you do because you want external validation, and understand the things that you do because it makes you feel good. If you've not done it for a while, look at your schedule, make a phone call, put something in your diary so at least it's there.
Yeah. I love what you've done there, because I think you've just, and I talk about this a lot, is taking purpose off a pedestal.
Yeah.
Because I think when purpose is like this big, elusive, intangible thing. I was speaking at a corporate HR conference this week at Microsoft in Seattle, and I was talking about the need to give people inside companies micro purposes. I was like, stop trying to get everyone to find this one purpose that overarches their life, and give them something just to get excited about, even if it's for 3 months.
Yeah.
So what can you get excited about right now? You can get excited about a train set right now.
Yeah.
You don't need to figure out whether you're going to build a train track or anything for real. And I love that, because I think it's so grounded in reality. And so often it's stuff that we left in our youth.
Exactly.
I mean, one of the reasons why I started making videos again is because I asked myself that question. I was like, what would my younger self be sad that I stopped doing?
Yeah.
And my answer to that was writing. And my answer to that was being creative. And my answer to that was, expressing myself through the written word and spoken word. Yeah. And that's kind of why I went back to it. And that's where I get the most buzz. I get the most buzz from putting together words that can help people and, being creative.
But Jay, it's like a ripple effect.
Yes.
Why I start small is if someone starts to reconnect with their passion, you know what? That will lead you to connect with yourself
100%.
more. And you may make different decisions in 2 years. You may not know what your meaning and purpose is now.
Yes.
Start with passion, and it will start to become clear.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely. It's as simple as that.
It is.
It's as simple as that. It's just start with what you like doing right now. Even if you don't love it.
Yeah.
Start with what you just like doing and what you like getting involved with. And same with the people around you. I think we're not decisive enough with our lives and our time about so many people say to me Jay, I spend 75% of my time with people I don't like. Yeah. And just shift that. You don't need to, you don't have to, there's no need to do that. So thank you for getting us started on that. I'm so glad we dove into purpose.
Hey, not at all.
Because I think it's such a powerful way. And tell me about intention.
Intention.
I want to know. Yeah. Because
what I mean by intention is, again, if someone is already out there living their purpose, this may not be relevant, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring it down to people who put it on a pedestal and think I can't do that.
I think for most people it's on a pedestal.
For sure, exactly. Yeah. And so intention is about doing something each day with complete mindful intent. Right? It doesn't need to be your whole day. Of course, I'd love it to be your whole day. I don't live my whole day with real mindful intent. I hope at one point I'm able to, but I can't. So I say choose one thing. Let's say you love, I don't know, coffee, right? Or tea. I'm in LA now, so I feel less about talking about tea. I feel more like talking about coffee, which is what everyone does in the US. Yeah. But when you're drinking it, when you're making it, right? Make it with real intent and purpose. Maybe for 5 minutes in the morning, focus on your coffee ritual. I used to have a real coffee problem. That was a crutch for me. And what I used to do is it would be a real ritualistic part of my day. I'd get up, I'd put the kettle on, and I'd weigh out the beans on a scale. No, I didn't have social media. I didn't have music on. It was all quiet. I'd literally watch the water pour on it, and it starts to froth. I'd put on the cafetiere. I'd put it on top. I'd just sit there for 4 minutes, just watching it, smelling it, taking in the aroma, and then mindfully drinking it. Right? The Japanese have tea rituals. It takes an hour to prepare a cup of tea. Right? It's not about the tea. It's about the process around it and what that symbolizes. I'm just trying to ask somebody to find something. Maybe it's a cup of coffee. Maybe it's a cup of tea that they prepare and drink completely mindfully. Because I find when you do that, it bleeds into the other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
It's not about that 5-minute session necessarily. It's what it does. It's a bit like meditation, isn't it? Like meditation, often you don't get all the benefit in the moment. You notice it later. Like you notice when I spoke to Light Watkins once on my podcast, who's a meditation teacher, and he goes, the mistake a lot of people make is they try and assess the result of the meditation immediately when they finished.
Yes. Yeah.
And sure, you may feel calm, but often it's in the other 23 and a half hours in your day
100%.
where you get the benefit. And so the intention piece is simply choose something, right? And I think coffee and tea are quite good examples of people because they're things that we all do.
Yeah.
And just do it mindfully with presence.
Yeah.
That is a form of meditation, you know? And it's to try and take even meditation off its lofty pedestal and bring it right down. And I guarantee you do that 7 days in a row, only for a few minutes, you will notice yourself being more mindful and present at other times.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm totally with you on that. And I talk about that a lot in my work right now as well, of just like, you've just got to do what you're doing anyway, whether it's showering, brushing your teeth, coffee, cooking. Like you do any of those acts mindfully. You don't even need to find that. And what I loved about what you said is that what we try and do is we go, I don't want to focus during this activity and I want to focus during this one. And I think that's a mistake because when you focus on something as simple as making your tea or your coffee, like you said, it bleeds into it. And now you're focused on everything. Whereas if you go, oh, while I make coffee, I'm just going to do it quickly.
Yeah.
But then when I get to that meeting, I'm going to be really focused. It doesn't work.
We got it wrong. We flipped it.
Yeah, exactly.
Pay attention to the small things and the big things will start to take care of themselves.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And we try and do it the hard way around. I'm going to focus for an hour, but I can't focus for a minute.
Yeah. It's like, we're going to go to the gym and work out for an hour. It's like, well, maybe just start 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Right. And so, Jay, the overall issue, the point for me is, with all these patients, these tens of thousands of people I have seen, 80% of what we're now seeing, right? 80% is in some way driven by collective modern lifestyles. It's that simple. And that's not being judgmental. I'm not putting blame on people. I get it. Life can be very tough. It can be very stressful. It can be very busy. But if you focus on those small things and pick one thing you heard about in this podcast. Not all of them. Pick one thing that resonated with you.
Yeah.
If you heard something that didn't resonate with you, fine, leave it. Yeah. Pick the one thing that did. Like I would say the 5 minutes and passion. I mean, you don't need a prescription to do something we love, right?
Yeah,
start there and see what happens in the rest of your life.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing, Rangan. Rangan, we end every episode with a final five, which is our final five rapid fire, quick fire round. So it's like 1 word to 1 sentence answers.
Try to keep my stress levels down now. I'll do some
I say that and I'm like, I feel the stress. You feel the stress. Do your 3, 4, 5.
I'm doing my 3, 4, 5.
3, 4, 5. So these are your final 5. Number one question. Are some people truly more creative at night?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Tell me more. I'm intrigued. Like if some people are like, I need to stay up at night to be more creative, to, get more work
when
done.
you mean like that?
Yeah.
I would say no.
Oh, okay.
Because I think we kid ourselves that we're night owls. So many of us do kid ourselves and we use light to keep us up and then we get that second wind, but you can easily change your rhythm. So I'm going to say no.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let's see this. I'm picking some good ones for you.
Back to the breathing.
What's something you're trying to learn right now?
I'm trying to learn how to use social media as a mirror to help me know when I've got an issue to process. So if I see something on social media that I get a rise from, instead of getting annoyed, I'm now using it to look at, hey, why is that bothering you?
I love that. I love that. What a great answer. Amazing. That's a brilliant answer. Question number 3. What was one of your habits that was the hardest to break for you?
Coffee.
Okay.
I was drinking way too much caffeine. There's nothing wrong with caffeine necessarily, but I was using it as a crutch. And when I identified why I was using it, now I managed to pretty much cut it out.
Okay. Question number 4. You're very good at this, by the way. Question number 4. If you weren't a doctor, what would you be doing?
Musician.
Oh, really? What do you play?
Guitar, piano, clarinet,
wow,
drums. I used to play, I used to tour. I recorded a solo EP that I toured around the UK. Pre the internet.
Yeah.
Pre, so it's not much
Can't
easy to
find
find. But yeah, it's a big part of my life, music. It's my passion.
Amazing. And question number 5, if you could set a 21-day challenge for my audience, what would you ask them to do? The one thing you'd like them to do for 21 days in a row.
For 5 minutes a day, do something that you absolutely love. That's it.
Amazing. I love it. Rangan, you're incredible. Thank you so much. This was such a brilliant podcast. Great interview. Loved every piece of advice you said. Everyone who's listening, make sure you come back to this one. And as Rangan said, all you need to do is pick one. Just pick one of these things, make it a big priority in your life, take a small step, and you can see his passion flying off the screen or in your ears. And I want you to recognize that he's made it sound so simple, but that's because it is. And I really value that today. I feel like you've made it just sound so easy and effortless. And when I'm sitting here listening to you, I'm like, you're right, it actually is. And whenever we try and complicate it by being more theoretical or more intellectual or any of these things, actually we're making it a lot harder on ourselves and for other people. So I think today you've really made it effortless and easy, Rangan. And thank you so much for doing that.
Thanks, Jay. It's a pleasure to meet you. Keep on doing the great work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, man. So as I said at the beginning, Rangan's new book is out. It's called The Stress Solution, the 4 steps to reset your body, mind, relationships, and purpose. Go grab the book right now. If you enjoyed the conversation, this was just the tip of the iceberg of all the wonderful insights, challenges, and takeaways that are inside this book.